Okay, so we are ready to start apparently. Welcome everyone. All the 8 people that are here in person, welcome, and the people that are online. So today I want to tell you something about fasting. It's an interesting topic, and some mechanisms about how fasting works really blew my mind, and I wanted to share it with you. So let's start, I guess. So first I want to talk about my intention. So my intention is not for you just to accept what I say, but also to kind of explain how it works so you can understand it by common sense and maybe also kind of reflect it with your own experience when you were sick. Some things may have happened. We will talk about it. And also, I'm not here to tell you what you should do. It's more to pique your interest about this topic and maybe do more research yourselves or just delve deeper into the topic because you might find it's interesting what I have to say. And also my second intention is to answer this question. I promised it to you on Slack, so that will happen. So what to expect when I start fasting, what breaks a fast, and is there food you can eat while doing it? What are the benefits of it? Can you cure or prevent disease with a fast? And will fasting consume all my muscle I gained in the gym? Because some people think that's the case. And finally, how to fast safely. I will not answer them in this order, but it will be in the presentation. So this is kind of what we will talk about. First, what is fasting? A little brief history of it. When was the first time people talked about it in history books, etc. And then I want to mention 2 most important processes in fasting, which is ketosis and autophagy. I will also tell you a story about a family with a child with epilepsy that I find really interesting, and it was kind of meaningful for history of fasting. Then I will show you fasting stages and what happens in your body when you fast, my experience and how to do it properly. At least the information I found about how to do it properly, and also how I did it. So what is fasting? Very simple, short definition is you abstain from food or drink. Now, you can also do a water fast, which is you don't drink water for a day to 3 days, but I'm not going to talk about water fast today. I'm also only going to talk about fasting of food, so meaning no eating. But it's actually interesting that you remain in a fasted state if you eat just fat, because eating fat, like ghee or pig lard, will not break your fast, the processes I will talk about, but eating carbohydrates and protein will. Okay, so basically if you want to fast, you just need to stop eating carbs and protein, okay? But most people just don't eat anything because eating pure fat is not really that tasty, so yeah. So I wanted to touch a bit of history about fasting because it's actually interesting that fasting appears as soon as writing. In some of the early texts we have, like 3000 before Christ, I think there was a mention of fasting, but mostly fasting was related to spiritual and religious context. Okay, so. And also there is a text from 8th century BC that mentions fasting with the context of mourning, meaning somebody died and people stopped eating for a few days. But there is an interesting Taoist text in 4th century BC about a woodworker named King. I'm not sure I'm reading this right, I'm sorry. And he created a beautiful bell stand, and it was so full of detail and so beautiful, people thought it was a work of God, and they asked him how he does this. How can he create such a beautiful piece of woodwork? And he said this: when I'm going to make a bell stand, I never let it wear out my energy. I always fast in order to still my mind. When I have fasted for 3 days, I no longer have any thought of congratulations or rewards or titles. So this is the first mention of fasting in the relation of a clear mind, that you have a clear mind, and we will talk about how it works. It's related to brain fog a little bit. And then it wasn't really until the ancient Greeks that fasting was mentioned the first time in relation with healing and something as a cure, not really religion or spirituality. So the reason it is connected to spirituality and religion, historians believe it's because when you fast for a really long time, like 20 days, you start seeing hallucinations, and many people hallucinated of God. So that's why the connection happened with religion. And also you have this kind of clear mind and you can decide freely, and people thought it's also a gift from God that suddenly you don't have what we call today brain fog, you know? So that's the link there. And there was also in the book Apocalypse of Elijah, written around the year 117, the author writes of fasting like this: it releases sin, it heals diseases, it casts out demons. So there is also religion again, but there is this one sentence, it heals diseases. So this is from 117. Okay, so then was a big boom in the 20th century. By the way, most of what I'm talking about is from this book. It's a book about fasting and also some podcasts with experts in the field. But these are the names mentioned in the book, and I cannot talk about all of them, so I just put the names here, and you can do research on your own. If you just Google Tanner fasting, Buchinger fasting, Lonzo fasting, you will know their stories. But they did various trials and experiments with people and fasting. Okay, and this all happened in the 20th century. Okay, so that's a bit about history. Now I want to talk about ketosis, which is the first mechanism that kind of gets triggered when you don't eat. Okay, and we will go into more detail about like what hour after you stop eating this actually happens in the topic about stages, but just in general. So ketosis is basically switching to an energy source different than glucose. How it normally works is that you eat proteins, fat, and carbs, and you break carbohydrates to glucose, and this glucose goes into your blood and also your liver if you have too much of it. And from your blood, there is this hormone called insulin, and insulin rises, and hormones are basically regulators, and like they start an action in your body, some program that is run. And what insulin does is it tells your cells to accept glucose for energy, because you have it, you ate, so it tells your muscle cells and other cells to take this glucose, do some stuff with it, and get energy from it. It gets converted to ATP, but I don't want to talk about it because it's not really that important here, and it's too in-depth. When you stop eating altogether and you begin a fast, there is a process that happens when basically your glucose goes down because you have it from carbs and protein, and your body starts to switch into using fat as energy. You start burning fat, decompose it, and you start creating ketones in your liver. And ketones is another energy source that your body can use to basically fuel itself, okay? So for your muscles, for example, they love glucose. It's their preferred food, let's say, call it food. But it can also work with ketones if you don't have it. And that's what ketosis is about. And also your brain, it's a kind of more beneficial food for your brain because it normally uses glucose as well, but glucose is actually pro-inflammatory, meaning it creates inflammation in your brain, which is not good for you. But ketones are anti-inflammatory, meaning they decrease inflammation in your brain. And inflammation, we talked about this in last EDUs, is one of the root causes. It's like 70% of the root of deaths in the world today is caused by inflammation, like heart attacks and Alzheimer's and what is the word for when you don't have enough blood in your brain? I forgot, sorry. Anyways, so what happens with ketosis is you actually increase metabolic flexibility. What this means is It's the ability of your body to switch between using glucose as a fuel to using ketones as a fuel, to using fat as a fuel. And the more you do fasting, the more you increase this metabolic flexibility. And that is really good for your brain because because I talked about already with inflammation. Because you get less inflammation, it's one of the prevention for degenerative diseases as Alzheimer's or dementia and these diseases of the brain. And there is a clear correlation between metabolic flexibility and these diseases. The more metabolically flexible you are, the more you are protected against this. And also what happens when you eat a lot of sugar, when you eat glucose often, when you eat like 5 to 6 times a day, you always get these glucose spikes. And what happens if you have a lot of glucose in your blood, we already talked about insulin, and insulin tells your cells to absorb it. But your cells kind of start to be insensitive towards insulin, and we call this insulin insensitivity. It's a horrible word. can't say it well. Insensitivity, yes, insulin sensitivity. And basically this starts decreasing when you fast because your insulin drops, your glucose drops, so your cells are suddenly more sensitive towards insulin and can take glucose in again. And this is another marker that doctors and scientists use to basically think of overall health, because there is again strong correlation about deaths and inflammation with insulin insensitivity, because the more insensitive you are, the more glucose stays in your blood, and it creates problems because then it hits we talked about this in the cholesterol EDU, it hits your cholesterol containers, it damages them, and then your immune cells go in, kind of eat this damaged cholesterol and absorb it and kind of glue themselves to the cell walls, and your veins begin, there is plaque created and your veins start being stuffed. Your blood cannot flow that well, and this leads to heart attack and the brain heart attack, I can't remember the word. Stroke, yes, thank you. Yeah, to stroke and stuff like this. So you don't want that. So you always want to be as insulin sensitive as you can, and this and fasting is a way how to achieve that. Okay. I'm just gonna check if I said everything I wanted to. Cholesterol, yes. So this is the first benefit of fasting, which is metabolic flexibility goes up and insulin insensitivity goes down. Okay, now I want to start talking about the second topic, which is the autophagy. But I want to read you a story about Abraham's family. It's from this book. And it's really interesting, and it changed the fasting landscape a little bit. I think I'm gonna sit down, because why not? Okay, so it takes like 3 to 5 minutes. Fasting enjoyed one other spectacular revival at the end of the last century, and it came about thanks entirely to a Hollywood director and his wife, Jim and Nancy Abrahams. In 1993, their son Charlie began having seizures, záchvaty, on his first birthday, and was soon convulsing up to 100 times a day. Imagine you have a kid that has 100 seizures a day. That's insane. A profusion of medications had almost no effect, and Charlie stopped growing physically, cognitively, and behaviorally. After consulting 5 pediatric neurologists, the Abrahams elected brain surgery, but it too failed to slow the seizures. Nor did Charlie find relief from a pair of homeopathic doctors, or all else having come to naught, a faith healer. Charlie's many doctors all said he was headed for mental and physical retardation. 9 months into this hell, while rooting around the stacks of a medical library, Jim Abrahams came across a volume on childhood epilepsy by a pediatric neurologist who ran the epilepsy clinic at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Deep within John Freeman's book, all but buried under a barrage of advice about drugs and surgeries, were 3 pages discussing a protocol that Hopkins doctors had been using on epileptic children for most of the century. They fasted the children briefly and then fed them a high-fat diet, also called ketogenic diet, and many either stopped seizing completely or had far fewer seizures. Yes, okay. So they asked his doctor where to go, and still the next time Jim Abrahams saw Charlie's primary neurologist, he said they were down to 2 leads and asked which they should pursue, Dr. Freeman in Baltimore or a herbalist who worked out of a street mall in Houston. Flip a coin, the neurologist replied. Neither will probably work. So the Abrahams flipped a coin and flew to Houston, but after a month of scented teas improved Charlie not a bit. They boarded a plane to Baltimore. Nearly 2 years old, Charlie weighed just 16 pounds. The protocol Freeman and Kelly put him on was a little different from the one Hopkins doctors had used in the past. Hopkins patients were fasted usually until they lost 10% of their body weight and then transitioned to a ketogenic diet that was 80% fat. Freeman kept the diet much the same, but he thought a prolonged fast inhumane and shortened it to between 24 and 48 hours, just enough to get the child into ketosis. Now remember, this kid has 100 seizures a day. Okay, that's insane. And on the second day, on the second day of Charlie's fast, his seizures stopped entirely, and they remained quiescent when he was moved to the ketogenic diet. Almost immediately, he began to develop normally again, and 2 years after his first visit to Hopkins, he was slowly weaned off the diet. His seizures never returned, and he grew to adulthood as healthy as his brother and sister. So, just give me a second. Yeah. So I just wanted to read you this story. We will continue it a little bit later, because this is about a child who couldn't be helped with anything, really. They tried medications, they tried surgery, and nothing helped. They also tried a herbalist. But the only thing that cured him was fasting for 2 days and then having a ketogenic diet. Now, about ketogenic diet, this is a diet that mostly contains fat and some protein and very low carbs. So it's kind of a mild version of a fast, you can call it, because we talk about how carbs and protein break the processes of ketosis and autophagy. So ketogenic diet is like a mild version, you can say, because you don't eat much of the things that break these processes. So how is it possible that there is like this story and many others that fasting helps people with curing something, right? And this is really what blew my mind when I learned how this works. And it prompted me to do this EDU actually and do the vote, because after I learned how this works. So autophagy, auto means self, and phagy means to eat. It's from ancient Greek. And so it kind of tells you kind of start eating yourself, you know. So what do you think you start eating in yourself? You have like millions of years of evolution when organisms sometimes didn't have food. So your body created this system called autophagy, and it probably has a choice what to eat inside you, right? So what do you think you start decomposing and deconstructing inside you? Does anybody has a guess? What cells you start eating? Dead cells, yes, that's one. A little bit, we will talk about it, but it's not really the point. Actually, with muscles, it's interesting. So the first day you start fasting, you start like deconstructing your muscles a bit, but it stops very quickly because your body actually wants to preserve muscle. It deems it very important. But there is another type of cell that you start eating. So I'm going to tell you, in autophagy, you start creating healthy cells, and you start duplicating healthy cells. So what's the opposite? What cells do you start eating? Yeah, exactly. So in autophagy, you start deconstructing. It's quite insane, actually. You start deconstructing because your body, it needs to continue. Your cells always make new stuff. They always make protein. They always make new cells. They always divide. If you stop this, you would die, right? You can see it all in nature. If you have a flower in your home, old leaves fall off, old stalks fall off, and new are created. The whole life works on this process of destruction and regeneration. That's how life works. It's your nechty, your hair, your, many things just die off and new things are created. So this still keeps happening when you fast and don't eat. You cannot stop this. So your body, since you don't eat any food, you don't have any amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. You don't have any proteins from your food, and you don't have any carbs from your food. Your body needs to get it somewhere else. So through millions of years of evolution, because this actually applies for all mammals, and it also applies for fungi, mushrooms. And so this process was refined over millions of years, because these organisms are here for a very long time. So your body actually figured out it can start eating dead cells, bacteria, so cells that are not your own, other pathogens, sick cells, meaning cells invaded by bacteria and viruses, or attacked by bacteria and invaded by viruses, because viruses go inside cells, and also mutated cells, for example, cancer, because cancer is not an external disease, but it's actually cells that mutate, and they go into a state when they refuse to die, and they also start other processes. For example, they use, I think it's called IGF-1. It's a hormone that you as children use to grow really quickly, and that's how cancer grows, And actually, every single one of you has fought cancer cells, and more. It's likely you are finding some of them right now. Your immune cells always tries to look for cancer and destroy it before it has enough time to trigger IGF-1 and grow into a tumor. And when you have a tumor, when it grows really quickly, that's when we say you have cancer. But in reality, you have cancer all the time, basically, because your cells mutate, okay? So this really blew my mind, because your body still needs building blocks, and it starts using everything you don't want. It literally starts eating disease inside your body, and it starts regenerating and multiplying new cells. So that now you might ask, but isn't it weird that you create a lot of new healthy cells? Because what really happens when you stop eating, you go into this survival mode, and your body is really smart about this, and it starts creating new healthy cells and repairing your DNA and recycling old and unhealthy cells, as we said. But you might say, isn't that weird? You don't have food, and you create new cells at a rapid rate, like they need food to function, no? Like what's happening here? And there is another process that happens during autophagy, and that is your cells, they start working much less. So what happens, your normal cell, let's say it works around 60%. Don't quote me on this number. It's not real, just to illustrate a point, okay? So, and it burns energy at a rate of 60%, let's say. And you can imagine if you want to get somewhere as a human from A to B, you can like jog there, right? Let's call it, you can sprint, jog, or walk, right? But what happens in autophagy, you regenerate and duplicate many new healthy cells, but they start working much less, because your body knows what you really need to survive is your cells and mitochondria. That's the building blocks of all of you. And what happens, mitochondria are the cells that create energy and keep your body going. So they start working at 20%. Imagine you want to cover, I don't know if you know MacBooks, they have like efficiency cores and performance cores. It's the same thing. Your body goes into efficiency mode and your cell starts taking much less energy their energy needs goes down, but there is way more of them. And this is the way how your body goes into survival mode when you don't eat and tries to survive. So instead of you jogging somewhere, running, you walk. That's what your cells do. Imagine a tribe of humans, maybe one or two could cover really great distances while running or jogging, but the rest of the tribe would be very tired. So if you, as a whole organism, want to survive, you just walk. So your cells, instead of burning a lot of energy, they burn much less. And this is really one of the systems that is, in my opinion, so smart, and it cannot be any other way. Of course, life is very smart because it has millions of years of evolution, you know. So I found this really fascinating. Let me check my notes, if I said everything. Yeah, I did actually, okay. So I also talked about Abraham's family and Charlie and epilepsy. They did more trials about these seizures, and one of them was with 26 patients, and they fasted them for 20 days, and 22 of these 26 patients stopped seizing entirely. Most of them had seizures again, but some were without signs of epilepsy 2 years after. And it's important to know that in this trial, the patients were all patients that medication didn't work for them. So their cases, we can assume, were tougher to cure because medication didn't work for them. And there was another one in 1925 that had 37 epileptic children. They were put on ketogenic diet, and many of them stopped seizing. And those that didn't stop seizing were put on a fast for 1 week, and all of their seizures stopped. After refeeding, meaning the trial ended, they again started eating food after the 1 week. 51% of these children, half, remained seizure-free, and 13 of the rest had greatly reduced seizures. Only 5 children saw little improvement, but noted a marked change in character. That was I said it because it was funny. They wrote it like this. But that's still crazy because, like, there are these diseases that are thought to be incurable, and you can only manage them with medication, and epilepsy is one of them. But the funny thing is that I want to continue the Abraham story because he was a Hollywood director and he had money and he was influential. He actually started something called the Charlie's Foundation. His kid was Charlie and he was cured. And this foundation was basically created to promote fasting and mostly ketogenic diet. They didn't focus on fast that much, but ketogenic diet more. And at the time they started it, there was like one hospital, I think, that used ketogenic diet as a cure for epilepsy, and now it's like 250 because of this foundation. So I want to read you another part. So they asked the doctor before Charlie was cured, why he didn't tell them about fasting, and he said, he declined to tell the Abrahams any of that because Charlie didn't yet exhausted all medical approaches. That is, hadn't tried every possible drug or procedure. Until he had, the neurologist saw no point in bothering with anything so kooky as a nutritional therapy, which whatever else it was, wasn't medical. It is as damning a summary of conventional medicine as a conventional doctor has ever uttered. So there is this, what I want to talk about now is like medicine and doctors, because there is this, like, I don't know how to call it, but people think and dismiss fasting as a cure, and because they don't view it as a medical treatment, they view it as something other than medical. I don't know why. And this is a text. Basically, my point is, right, I'm telling you that fasting, you start eating up diseases, and it's the most powerful healing mechanism that you have, you know, just by stopping eating. And you can say, but David, like, are you insane? What gives here? Like, this is the most powerful thing that you can use to heal, but they didn't thought us this at school. They didn't tell us at elementary school. Our doctor haven't told me. And I think this text really illustrates it well. It's from Dr. Upton Sinclair. He written around 1911, and he was also doing research in fasting. He's in the third slide in the brackets as one of the people who explored fasting in 20th century. And he says, it was difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. And for a doctor to acknowledge the merits of fasting would have threatened more than his salary. To admit the body, if left alone, could often heal itself was as good as admitting that a portion of the craft he had so laboriously learned and diligently practiced was humbug. So it's really, I think this is one of the reasons why doctors dismiss it and don't really give advice to people, is because you cannot make money on it, and they can start losing their jobs if everybody knew you can heal many things with fasting, you know. And epilepsy is not the only thing. I will mention it later, what other diseases were mentioned in this book that fasting healed or greatly improved. So now I want to really go a little bit deeper and show you what happens in your body and what are the different stages of fasting. By the way, do you have any questions so far about autophagy or ketosis, or do you want to leave it at the end? I don't know what is better. Okay, I will continue then. I linked the YouTube video about these stages. I'm sorry, it's dark. I know the whole presentation was light, but I really didn't want to chart it myself, so I just made a screenshot. So basically the 0 hour on the left is when you eat food, okay? What happens? So you can see a green line and blue line, and this is the first stage. It takes about 6 hours after your last meal. By the way, these numbers can vary from people to people. Some people start some processes a little bit later, some a little bit earlier, because the more you fast, if you're used to it, the faster you start autophagy and ketosis, because your body knows how to do it and is accustomed to it. So it's not like exactly every human starts a process that I will show starts at 24 hours. It doesn't mean it will be exactly 24 hours for you, but give it take, I don't know, 4 hours, let's say, okay? So you start the green line and you have a huge spike of glucose, and then it sharply goes down. And after around 6 hours, your glucose from glycogen goes up. Glycogen is reserve glucose in your liver. Basically, you store glucose in your liver, and your liver has this function. If you don't eat for some time, it pushes the glucose out from the liver into your blood, so your body can use it as a fuel. So there is stage 2 happens around 8 hours to 18 hours after your last meal. And here you can start experience uneasiness, brain fog. You get easily angry or agitated because your body feels it doesn't have enough glucose and you're kind of on edge. But what starts to happen is your insulin starts dropping, and also gluconeogenesis start. And that's the purple line at the bottom here that starts growing. And gluconeogenesis, in short, is breaking up other stuff than carbs and your food for glucose, which is your muscles, skin cells, and other cells. But also another thing starts, and that's the orange line at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it well, I'm really sorry. And that's, you start breaking up fatty acids. That's the orange line. And the other one is ketones, which you also start doing for breaking up fats, but only your liver starts doing it. And it's really this yellow line at the bottom, and you cannot see it that well, but you will see it much more later. So, okay, so then around 18 to 24 hours after you had your last meal, you can see a huge spike up in your body using fat as energy from the orange line and from the ketones. Your ketone production starts ramping up really quickly at this stage. Your gluconeogenesis, which is taking apart some of your body parts for glucose, it starts to level, that's the purple line here. It's just going flat now. But your energy from fat and energy from ketones, which is also fat, starts going up. And also, around this time, 50% of your energy needs come from glucose. Before it was mostly glucose, and 50% comes from fat. So imagine, here you really start losing weight, because your body is using 50% of their energy need from fat cells that you need to deconstruct, And also around this time, around 18 to 24 hours, when this stage begins, autophagy starts. The process we said about regeneration and destruction of sickness in your body. So stage 4, you can see the yellow line continuing up, which is ketones. Now you really are producing a lot of ketones. Your fatty acid starts to kind of balance, and your glucose start going down. This is the kind of purpley pink line is total glucose in your blood, and it goes down. Your insulin starts going down fast too. And basically only brain cells, red blood cells, and kidney cells use glucose now. The rest of your body uses ketones. Your muscles, adipose tissue, which is like connective tissue in your body, they all use ketones now. And your brain still uses some of the glucose, but it's starting to use ketones for energy now. And that's really good for the brain because I told you it's anti-inflammatory. And what happens, the brain fog and the agitation you felt at the first to second stage, it now comes down and you start to have a really clear mind. And basically the brain fog disappears, which is really nice. And another benefit is detoxification, because how your body works, if you have too many toxins in your body, it actually stores the toxins in your fat cells. So it cannot escape. The toxins are locked there. It's like it can be metals or other poisonous stuff. And what happens since you're breaking so much fat now, because the orange and the yellow line signal breaking of fat cells, you start to detoxify your body as well, because the toxins get freed from these cells, but your body has mechanisms to expel them safely outside your body through like sweat, maybe urine and other exits. So that's also start to happen. And now we enter the last stage, which is stage 5, and everything kind of finds its balance here. You can see the yellow, the purple, and the orange lines are all kind of balanced now. And this happens, it varies from person to person, but about 3 to 5 days after your last meal, your body is now fully adapted to ketosis. It's fully adapted using fat as an energy source. You have a really clear mind, like you can think really well. There is a theory, it's also to help you find food, right? When we were foragers and hunters, and you were without eating for a few days, there is a theory that this is also why you have a really clear mind, so you can think how to get food very efficiently, And your insulin is down, glucose is down, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, goes down, adrenaline, another stress hormone, goes down. And basically at this point you use about 80% of your energy needs come from burning fat, not sugar but fat. Glucose is sugar, by the way, I didn't say this, but I hope people know this. If not, now you know. Yes, okay, and 80% of energy. Is there anybody here who knows the word mTOR by any chance? If not, I don't think I'm going to talk about it. It's basically a pathway which you can understand as a program that your body runs to grow. It's what activates muscle growth, and this is completely stopped at this phase. But it doesn't mean you eat your muscles. Your body doesn't want you to start eating your muscles like as a last resort. So you basically eat everything else. Now, the fast, this is only goes to 5 days, right? But if you would continue, it would look very similar to this. Not much would change. The processes we talked about would continue. You would still lose weight. You would still repair your cells. You would still detoxify your body. This continues. But then after, it's different for every human. But of course, you cannot have a fast for half a year, you know. There is a point when you start deconstructing things you shouldn't, exactly as your muscles or your organs. You can start deconstructing your heart muscle after. It's very different for every human. I cannot tell you it's for you if it's 20 days or 60 days, because if you have a lot of fat, it's longer. People that have massive fat reserves can actually go for long in this stage. But another thing I wanted to note, as you can see on the graph, the orange and the yellow line, which is burning out fat cells, this is after around 3 days. It's the highest rate of burning fat that you can achieve. Nothing will burn fat faster, meaning there is no pill, no diet, no nothing that will help you burn fat faster than 3 days of no eating, okay? So if your goal is to lose weight, this is one of the ways you can do it, is not to eat for 3 days plus. Now, what do we have here? Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how to do this properly, because fasting has many benefits, as we talked about, and how to start doing it if you want. By the way, has anybody fasted before? I wanted to ask the question at the start, but I forgot. Anybody tried it? And keep your hands up if you can. Did you do it for, keep your hands up if you did it for losing weight purposes. Okay, so 2 people. And put your hands up if you did it for healing purposes. Okay. And any other purposes, maybe, that I didn't mention? Just for fun. Okay, nice. Interesting, okay. So if you, let's say you want to go into this healing mode and fat burning mode, how would I recommend you starting, and I also did it this way, is with intermittent fasting. It's the easiest version of this. Basically, there's 2 types of fast, intermittent fasting and prolonged fast, which is like 1 day and more altogether. So intermittent fasting is basically you go into a regime when you don't eat every day for some time. The most famous one is 16 and 8 hours, meaning 16 hours you don't eat, and you eat only in an 8-hour window. That's what we call an intermittent fasting. So let's say you have your lunch at 5 p.m., then you don't eat for 16 hours and have your breakfast at 9 a.m. That's called intermittent fasting. Now, you don't have to do it every day, but I recommend trying this for 4 days in a row, because an interesting thing happens. Many people experience that their tummy aches before sleep if they don't eat. If they have dinner at 5, some people experience like it's harder to fall asleep at 11 p.m. after 5 hours not eating, and they have this uncomfortable feeling. So why I recommend trying intermittent fasting for 4 days straight is because around the 3rd day, was my experience, this feeling completely ends. Your body understands it's not going to get food after 5 or 6 p.m., whatever you choose, whatever window. And you will fall asleep very easily, and your body will accommodate to this, and you will lose this uncomfortable feeling in your tummy. And So that's about intermittent fasting. You can also, I did very often 15 hours of no eating and 9 hours of eating. Basically, I had dinner at 6 and breakfast at 9, and it's very doable. The minimum is kind of 13-hour window because ketosis starts after 12, around 12 hours. So 12 hours of no eating is kind of normal, and you don't really get much benefits. That's like a normal, ketosis doesn't start there, so there's not if you do it for only 12 hours, you are not really doing intermittent fasting. So then after you try intermittent fasting, if you try it for 4 days straight to get this uncomfortable feeling out, you can then do it maybe every second day or 3 days a week. You don't have to do it every day, really. You know, sometimes you have a party, your friends invite you for dinner. So I wouldn't stress too much about it, but of course, if you want, you can do it for a month straight. That's up to you. And then you have these prolonged fasts, right? It's basically 1 day or longer. So I would also go slow here. What I did as a first prolonged fast was basically have my dinner at 6. I didn't eat during the night. I didn't eat during the next day, and then again the night. So it was basically 2 nights and 1 day of no eating. And this is kind of easy in my opinion. Like, you can do it. It's basically 1 day without eating, and during the night you don't eat anyways, so the second night is kind of for free just to get longer. And you will already start autophagy because it starts around 18 hours after no eating, and this is 36 hours basically. Then you can start doing like a 3-day fast or a 5-day fast. I did a 5-day fast. That was my longest fast that I did in one block. And I will talk about my experience later, but it was very similar about what I show you with brain fog and stuff like that. So if you want to do a prolonged fast, there's important things how to do it right, what to do pre-fasting, you know. So it's really good to eat vegetables and mushrooms, basically something that's high in fiber. Because what really happens when you have a prolonged fast, your bowels completely stop, and the last food you eat will stay there. So if you fast for 14 days, it will stay in your belly, and your cells inside your abdomen, fiber is their favorite food basically. That's what they like the most being there, so it's the most safe to eat. And it will also not create a huge glucose spike, so before the fast you already won't have such a high glucose. Fiber is really good for that. Now during a fast, it's very important to not eat supplements except for electrolytes. Basically, because your body through evolution, it found ways to keep these vitamins and what people take as supplements and conserve it. So if you actually take vitamins when you fast, you kind of jakoby zmatete tělo, jak se to řekne, confuse your body, because it has a mechanism to conserve and work with the vitamins it has. And there was actually a trial done when 2 groups of people fasted for, I think, 20 days. And one group didn't take supplements and the other did. And the one that did had much worse time of fasting, and it was actually dangerous for them. So do not take vitamins. But what you can do is what naturally is in water. 1,000 years ago, when we did a filter water and nature wasn't touched by human activity, there was a lot of electrolytes in water, like magnesium, sodium, and stuff like this. So it is good to take electrolytes. Basically, you can just buy magnesia and drink it. That's water with electrolytes, magnesia. There are microplastics, of course, but that's another edu. You know. So electrolytes are really good because they also help your body with chemical processes. They basically are there to conduct electricity between cells. So electrolytes are okay. Vitamins, no. So I also wanted to touch about fasting for women because it's kind of a specific topic. So it is connected with women's cycle. Basically, it is not recommended for women to fast 1 week before your period starts up to 4th day of your cycle. Basically, pre-menstruation period and during your period, it's not recommended to fast because your body handles stress way less because of the hormone cocktail that you are exposed to. So it's safe to start fasting for women around the 4th day of their cycle up to the 1 week before their period. So it's about, 20 days. It's safe to fast. 10 days, it's not so good. It's not like it's gonna kill you, but it's gonna be much harder for your body, Also, I wanted to touch the topic of children because Charlie was a child and he fasted. So definitely don't fast babies. That's only if your doctor approves it. But around the age, maybe to 7 to 12, it should be considered safe, but it's very important to limit the duration because in this book, there are examples of adult people who fasted for 40 days, like Jesus, And I think it would be very unsafe for a child to fast this long, but many children are starting fasting around the age 7 to 10 for religion purposes. There is like Ramadan and other also Christian fasting during Easter, and usually children start doing it too. So yeah, that's about fasting with children. And post-fast, this is also very important. So we talked about how your body regenerates cells during autophagy, but it cannot really start. The regeneration continues after you had your first meals, even though ketosis goes down. Like you can see here, right? There is like a build-up around many hours, and then when you eat, these lines, they don't go down in a straight line. It also takes some time. But your body, it doesn't have all the materials, and it really enjoys, after you end your fast, that it has new materials to work in, new proteins, that it can start building new cells with. So it's important to kind of, I would say, eat healthy after you finish a fast, and also limit your food, especially the longer you fast for. If you fast for a day, it's nothing huge, but if you fast for 5 days, and this also touches my own experience, you don't eat svíčková after that, okay? Your belly will hurt like crazy. You need to, you want to eat basically vegetables with fiber, which is broccoli, cauliflower. You can eat chočka, lentils. Green or black lentils are really good. And you also want to limit your portions. So I had like half a portion of my usual breakfast with lentils and broccoli and cauliflower and eggs. And it was too much after I had the 5-day fast. You want to have like 20% of your normal portion for your first food. Just eat a few broccoli with olive oil or something. Fat is also good because you can eat fat even during a fast. So, and the longer your fast, the longer you want to limit your portions. So with my 5-day fast, I limited my portions for 1 day, but it was not enough. My belly hurt a little bit, nothing crazy, but I still ate too much, and it's better to limit your portions for at least 2 days and ramp it up, like have a little bit, like 20%, then 30 for your next meal, then 40, and just ramp it up. But don't eat, definitely no sweets, nothing super heavy like dumplings, or also I would stay away from meat at least the first day. What you really want is mostly fiber, because fiber tries to regenerate your gut flora. There are bacteria in your gut that their favorite food is fiber, and they also die. I actually I forgot to tell you something during a fast, but I will tell it here. So when you are in this process, in this 5th stage, your gut bacteria start dying, okay? And scientists have found out that when you are craving sugar, it's not only your brain that's signaling that the impulse comes from your brain, but many impulses actually come from your gut. The bacteria in your gut, they want to eat, and there is like a signal highway to your brain, and they say, give us sugar, give us sugar. But what you can do actually is run a little genocide, which you will do when you fast, and kill the gut bacteria that crave sugar. And what happens after 3 days of no eating, you kind of don't really have cravings for sugar anymore, and things that are sweet start tasting super sweet. Like after a fast, if you have a Snickers bar or chocolate or Coca-Cola, you are like, what the? It's like almost uncomfortably sweet, which is this, but we are so used to it that we don't know. But there is other things that start to happen after these 72 hours. I'm sorry I jumped back a little bit, but it's important. Also your immune system. So your gut bacteria starts completely resetting, old cells start dying and new cells starts appearing, but also your immune system starts completely resetting and you start creating new immune cells. And why is this important? So your immunity. So how it comes to the process of autophagy and how your body actually chooses the sick cells and dead cells and pathogen and stuff like this that you want to eat, the disease inside of you. You need to find it first. But you start finding it really efficiently because suddenly when you eat food, it's a lot of energy that your body needs to actually break down food, not only for the cells in your gut that consume the food, but also for your immune system. Because your immune system knows the danger areas that can affect you. Your immune system job is to protect you against anything that is not supposed to be in your body. So it's very active at the exits into your body, in nose, mouth, ears, eyes, but also, of course, in your gut, because one of the ways you can kill yourself is eating something you are not supposed to, like poison. So your immunity is mostly active here and around these areas when you eat. But when you stop eating, what happens? Your immunity starts being active all over your body and scanning much more cells than it usually does. That's why it can so easily find these sick cells, these cancer cells and everything, because first you have more energy because you don't use energy for this, so immunity has more energy, but it also has more kind of like, you can send more immune cells from here to other parts of your body, I also wanted to say that and I forgot, so sorry that I'm going back. But I just wanted to explain how is it that you can basically find these sick cells so easily. So I have a question. Is there anybody here who was sick and they kind of lost their appetite? They didn't want to eat for a bit. So this is exactly why this happens, because when you are really endangered, your body knows it really wants to start this autophagy process, and it knows it cannot give the body energy to process food, and it doesn't want your immunity to be active only here, but it wants to heal you and find the problems, the disease as fast as possible. So it is actually, some people give advice, but have at least a juice, have an orange so you have some vitamins. Don't do this. If you lose your appetite, that means you are most probably really sick and your body needs you not to eat, okay? If you have a really dangerous disease and you eat, you actually throw it up because your body wants to stay in autophagy and heal as much as it can, and it wants to give your immune system the environment and the energy it needs to do it, So that's another argument I wanted to say, so it kind of clicks for people, that you have experience with autophagy and you don't even know it. And it happens, even if you didn't fast, it happened to you when you were sick because you didn't want to eat. Okay, this is one of the last slides. My experience with fasting. So I was actually sick like 2 weeks ago, and I had, my classic cold goes like this. I start having throat aches, then I cough, then I have a full nose, and I have a fever. And I usually have a fever for around 3 days. So let's say it was Monday, and in the morning I started to feel, okay, something's happening, I'm going to be sick. So I actually decided not to eat and try fasting if it's going to have some effect. And what was so funny, the next day, so I started having a fever, like around 38.2 or something, and I also had shivers, I was really cold and I had shivers. But this time it lasted only for 1 day, usually for me, I don't know how it's for you, but for me, my experience is I usually have shivering and fever for 3 days. This time I didn't eat anything the first day, and the second day it was gone. I had still symptoms like a throat ache and stuff, but my shivering and temperature was normal, which was really cool. I wanted to mention it. Now, of course, I am also supporting my immune system through zinc, vitamin D, and vitamin C. I try to have optimum levels, so it could help as well. I don't know if it was only the fast, but it was interesting. Now, another experience when I started doing intermittent fasting like 2 years ago, and again, this is my own experience, I started losing weight a lot, actually, and I didn't do a 5-day fast, just the intermittent fasting. I told you I did 15 hours of no eating and a 9-hour eating window. I started losing weight, and I also wanted to note here that it's actually better if you have early dinner or skip it than skipping breakfast. Because what happens during our circadian rhythm, as we humans are accustomed to sunlight and how it works, your pancreas that's actually creating insulin, the hormone that tells cells to absorb glucose, it goes down in the evening. It expects you not to eat. So it's actually much better for you to not eat in the evening than not to eat in the morning. And I think you can kind of also explain it by common sense, because you need energy for the day, right? Like you don't need energy for sleeping. So I think it kind of makes sense for you to not skip breakfast because you get energy for the day, and just skip dinner or have early dinner instead. Yeah, and then I did my 5-day fast. To be honest, it wasn't super hard, but it also wasn't super easy. Like 1-day fast, it's kind of okay. Everyone can do it, I think, especially if you're accustomed to intermittent fasting. But I can definitely say I was agitated at the second day. You know, you kind of are on the edge. You have like this unrest feeling inside of you, and it's not very pleasant, but then it goes off. You stop having this feeling. Now, a lot of people say you have like a super clear mind, so maybe I was biased and programmed and expected like I would be a god of a thinker. That didn't really happen. I noticed there is much less brain fog, but I kind of thought it would be more. But it was like you could tell a difference, but for me it wasn't that huge, even of the 5th day. But I could clearly say that my lungs were regenerating. That's the reason I did it, because I started coughing hleny. I don't know what's the English word for it, but hleny are basically your dead lung cells and dead immune cells that are fighting something in your lungs. So I knew I was definitely regenerating something. And also I wanted to say that you feel weak physically, kind of. So your mind is okay after a few days, but when you fast, since your muscles, they love glucose much more than ketones, even though they can use ketones, they are weaker. So when you fast, you don't really want to go sprinting or go to the gym. Your performance will be lower, or at least that was my experience. But many people say this, and it kind of makes sense, you know. So I also wanted to say that. So this is a list from this book that he mentions these things that were either cured or greatly improved by fasting. It's a huge list of diseases, and it all comes back to autophagy basically, because as I said, your immune system just looks for sickness in your body and start decomposing it and marking it for destruction. And there is a lot of diseases that many people suffer from, you know, like asthma, epilepsy. Gout is not really that relevant now, but it used to be. And also rheumatoid arthritis, it's a very interesting one. It's basically inflammation of your joints, but and it's painful. It's painful to move if you have this. It's called rheuma in Czech. And when you fast, this inflammation goes down and you feel much better. And some people actually cured it. And there is also notes here about people completely curing elevated blood pressure. So this is also a very common thing that people have. So if you have elevated blood pressure for like it's with you for a long time, you can try fasting and maybe it will help. So yeah, I talked a lot. So just some final words and then you can ask questions. As I said, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I just wanted to tell you that there is a way your body can heal. Like the fat burning, it's cool. Everybody kind of knew that if you stop eating, you lose weight. It's like nothing crazy, right? But I think what really blew my mind is how autophagy works and how you basically start eating sickness in you, and that seems really cool to me. And you plus you start regenerating and multiplying healthy cells. So I just wanted to let people know about this because not many people know, and I think it's really useful. And maybe, when, even if you don't start fasting now, maybe you will be sick in the future and nothing will work, no medication, and you will just not improve. Maybe you can remember this and try fasting and see what happens. So that was it. Thank you very much. Does anybody have a question? Okay.
So how many days do you
Yeah, he will give you a mic.
For how many days do you do this intermediary fasting, or like that you don't eat for 8 hours?
Yeah, so at first I did it for like a week just to try it out, and also for my body to understand it's not gonna get food in the evening and to fall asleep easier, as I said. But now I do it from time to time, really. I did it before to lose weight and it worked very well. I lost like 6 kilograms of weight, I think, kind of quickly. And now I do it basically when I feel like it. So it varies. Sometimes it's 10 times per month, sometimes it's 3 times per month, really, in the last year, I would say. I have it kind of comes in waves. I have a wave when I really I want to fast, I want to eat healthy, so I do, then comes a wave when I don't eat that healthy and I don't fast that much, yeah. And by the way, one more thing, when you do intermittent fasting, it's good to change it up because your body and your metabolism, especially if you want to lose weight, because your metabolism get accustomed, and if you do, let's say 15-9 every day for the rest of your life, your metabolism get accustomed to it and you actually start you stop losing fat as fast because you get accustomed to it. So it's nice to do maybe sometimes 16-8, 15-9, or like even don't fast for a few days because then you don't get accustomed to it, and also change the times. One day stop eating at 5, one day stop eating at 7, and maybe skip breakfast, although we talk about it's better to skip dinner, but for the sake of not get used to it, if your goal is fat loss, it's better to change it up. Yeah.
So let's say that I have the opposite problem, since I am like 4 kilos above the minimum body mass index.
Okay.
I might want not to lose fat, or at least not that fast, and still have the healthy benefits of fasting.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked this question because I also wanted to say this. Of course, different people have different levels of fat storage, and you have to be really careful not to go into starvation because fasting and starvation are very different things. Obviously, children, I'm going to use the very kind of classic example of children in Africa. I would not recommend fasting for them because that's not fasting, that's starvation. So in the book, now I don't have this experience, they said even if you don't have huge amount of body fat, fasting should be safe, and it should be safe at least for 10 days. So if you fast for 10 days, even if you will lose fat, you cannot really stop this, but you will gain it back, to be honest, and it should be safe. Now, here they say that if you do a prolonged fast, 5 days or more, it should be under doctor supervision or a nurse supervision. So consider that. but I think up to 5 days, it's completely safe to do it on your own. If you don't take the vitamins and stuff I said, if you prepare for it and you eat healthy after, yeah. So you will lose weight. There is no way to fast without not losing weight, of course, but you should gain it back and after you start eating again, you know. So yeah, at least I don't know about a way how to not lose weight at all. Also, I wanted to say you can actually eat something while you're fasting. If it's really unbearable for you, you can eat like a half an avocado because it's mostly fats in avocado. And although there is some protein, as we looked at this chart, you know, let's say you eat avocado here, there is some protein, so it would break your fast a little bit, but it doesn't go like this, you know. So you eat avocado, it goes like this and it goes back up really quickly, you know. But I'm not saying eat half an avocado every 3 hours. That would not work. But like if you are really, let's say the second day, I think it's the hardest, you can eat half an avocado during the day to help you a little bit, you know. Yeah. Oh, this is something else. Sorry for not having an answer. Maybe there is a way how to go into autophagy and not lose weight, but I don't know it, you know. Yeah.
Thanks.
Is there any question? Huh?
Okay, can you stay in ketosis indefinitely if you just eat fat, or
Sorry?
can you stay in ketosis indefinitely if you just eat fat? Or you should
So
stop at some point?
You can actually, because your fat doesn't break ketosis at all, you know. But if your question is if you can eat fat for the rest of your life, no, because you need protein, mostly amino acids, and there is something called essential amino acids, and it's like 9 of the 18 or whatever, I don't know the number, but some amino acids, which is the building blocks of proteins, which is the building blocks of everything kind of, mostly, your body can make on its own, but the essential ones you cannot make, so you have to eat protein. You would die if you didn't eat protein for a long time, you know. And as I said, there are people that didn't eat it for 40 days and survived, but you cannot not eat protein for a year. You will not survive this, you know. But yeah, if your question was, can I stay in ketosis for 20 days if I eat fat? Yes, you will, you know. Is there any question on the chat? Okay.
All right, so Martin Borean has several questions. I will go through them one by one. So the first one is, how will my body behave when I start eating after fasting?
Okay, so I can only talk about my experience and what I heard. Your mileage may vary, as people say, but he said after he stops fasting, right? After beginning eating again.
Yeah, when I start eating after fasting.
Okay, if you start eating. So basically, after you start eating, you will feel something is happening here. You know, if you eat too much, it will be pain. But my experience was the pain was completely manageable and I ate too much. That's why I said eat really low portions, mainly of vegetables with fiber, or you can drink vegetable stock also. But you need to start eating solid foods at one point, you know. Yeah, so your energy will come back, mostly your muscle energy. Your brain feels very energetic when you're fasted, but your muscles are kind of tired. And food tastes absolutely amazing. That is basically my biggest answer, I guess. Like the first meals you eat after not eating for a prolonged time, you really taste really well. I don't know, Martin, if you have a question about a specific area that you are concerned about, maybe specify it a little bit better. But yeah, you will start gaining movement energy. It's not that you cannot move when you fast, but you're really working out. It's much harder, and And yeah, you will love the taste of food.
Well, to expand on the first question, Martin actually asked whether his body will start accumulating more energy in fat, because some people used to say that happens after many diets.
Yeah, so you will lose some reserves of like this fast fat, we call it. That's what you burn kind of the first. And this layer of fat you gain back really quickly. So yes, but the more long-term fat that you burned, you will not gain it after 3 days of eating. That takes much more time. But the layer of this fast fat, yes, you will regain it, so you will actually gain some weight, but you would have to eat a lot to gain back the weight you lost if you had like a prolonged fast, you know. So yeah, you will gain some fat back. I don't know, I hope that was the answer you were looking for, or...
Mm-hmm. So that was the first question. Thank you for answering.
And sorry, one more thing. You also asked about energy. When you start eating food again, you again start storing glucose into your liver. We called it, it's called glycogen. I showed you in the stages. So that's also starts happening. You again, every of the process of ketosis and fat burning goes down, and basically your body again starts ramping up insulin and glucose in your blood, and also some of the glucose starts being stored in your liver again. Sorry, I'm done.
No worries. Martin actually says thank you. And the second question is, could you, well, it's not a question, but could you just quickly sum up how does one eat/drink during a multi-day feast? Fast.
Okay, so multi-day feast is kind of the opposite, but just adding one letter. So in short, I don't want to talk about water fasting, so you should definitely drink. There is a way to do a water fast where you don't drink, for example, for a day or two, but I don't have experience with it. It's a little bit more dangerous, so I don't want to talk about it. But no, just drink normally, drink enough, and preferably drink water with electrolytes, with magnesium, sodium, and there are others. And with food, just don't eat. Don't eat anything. Basically, that's the safest way how to do it. If you want, you can have a spoonful of ghee or something, or half an avocado, but the best way is just not to eat anything, you know. And some people also say to empty your bowels if you had something, you know, if you had fiber, I think it's okay, but I know that there is a fasting clinic in Germany, because Germany is one of the countries that actually approve fasting as a healing solution because of this guy, the second one, Buchinger. There is a Buchinger clinic in Germany. He started it. So yeah, just don't eat, drink enough water. Drink, I would say drink the same as you normally drink, or a little bit more, because some water you actually get from food, you know. And add electrolytes, either by powder, electrolyte powder, or just by magnesia. It's a water with electrolytes from Karlovy Vary. Or other, doesn't have to be magnesia, but water with electrolytes is really nice. And don't supplement anything, don't supplement vitamins, just don't eat anything, yeah, that's the best way. Okay, so any other questions, either in the chat or here? I know some people wrote into Slack that they heard about fasting not being beneficial but hurting somebody. So the only basically cases that I heard about this was with children having a really long fast day they shouldn't have. That's one danger that I heard about. The other one was the vitamin supplementation, because you kind of confuse your body. We talk about this, so that's one danger type of fasting. And I'm not sure I heard about any women having problem because they're fasting at the wrong time in their cycle, but maybe it could also be dangerous. But I think it's just more unpleasant than dangerous. So yeah, I think Jirka Červený said this in the thread. Yeah. So if there is no more questions, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you will at least research it on your own, because today I told you that everybody has access to the most powerful healing tool that you can think of, and start eating diseases in your body. I think it's really powerful. And if you don't believe me, research it on your own. Watch podcasts with experts, read books, I don't know. But if you don't believe me, try not to just dismiss it because you don't believe it, and learn it for yourself. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you very much.